Sometimes it takes a single catastrophic moment to change absolutely everything. For one man, it all started with the deafening crunch of metal on a snowy mountain. This is the incredible story of Yusuf and how a moment of total crisis led to a profound spiritual awakening.
So, to really get this story, you gotta understand where he was coming from. In his own words, his life before all this was just chaos. He felt completely lost, and he just couldn't figure out why. So what was going on? What was the source of that emptiness?
Well, his story starts way back in Wales, in a world that was supposed to have all the answers, but for him, just left him with more questions.
Okay, so you can see this real conflict here, right? As a kid in the Catholic Church, Yusuf was naturally curious. He wanted to understand the stories, the rituals, all of it. But every time he asked a question, he got shut down. He was even told he was being naughty. So eventually that pushed him away. Not to atheism, though. He ended up as an agnostic, feeling like there had to be something more out there, but he had no idea what it was or how to find it.
So what do you do when that spiritual door seems to slam shut? Well, for him, he just threw himself headfirst into the physical world. He went all in on a high-risk, high-reward career in extreme sports, a life filled with action, adrenaline, and what society basically tells you is success.
And he got it all. He got the success, the crazy adrenaline rush, the career, everything that he was told would make him happy. And yet, that feeling deep inside, it was still there. This profound emptiness. It turns out all the external thrills in the world couldn't fill that internal void.
And that feeling, that emptiness, that's the backdrop for the moment that changed everything. It all came down to a single, split-second decision on a mountain.
He was out snowmobiling, hitting a jump with some friends. He'd already done it a few times, no problem. And then, you know that little voice in your head that says, let's push it? He decided he was going to go into the jump a lot faster.
And just like that, suspended in midair, he knew. He knew he'd made a massive mistake. He saw where somebody else had landed, and he realized he was way off. There was just no time to get away from his own machine. The realization was instant, and it was terrifying.
The outcome was just brutal. His snowmobile slammed into the ground and stopped dead. His body kept going, crashing right on top of it, and the impact was catastrophic. In his own words, his leg just exploded.
Imagine that, lying there in the snow in excruciating pain, waiting 45 minutes for a helicopter. But in that moment, something else broke open inside him. It wasn't just about the physical pain anymore. It was this deep existential agony. He cried out, not just from the injury, but from a lifetime of confusion, asking, what is the point of all of this struggle?
So that crash lands him in a hospital in Istanbul for surgery. And this is where the story takes a turn that, honestly, nobody could have seen coming.
He's in the hospital, and his dad is about to leave him there to recover. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, Yusuf says something. Something he later described as feeling like someone else was literally using his mouth to speak.
So what did he say? He looks at his dad and goes, maybe I'll visit a mosque, and maybe I'll become Muslim. I mean, think about that for a second. He knew nothing about Islam. He'd never looked into it. The words came out of his mouth almost like a sarcastic joke. That's how impossible it sounded even to him. So now he's alone in Istanbul with this weird, random thought just hanging in the air. And what happens next is this series of, well, you could call them coincidences, that leads him to a face-to-face, life-altering moment. Okay, so get this. He tries to go to a museum, right? Just to get out of his room, but he gets totally lost on the metro. So he just starts walking, no map, no idea where he's going. Finally, his leg is killing him, he's thirsty, he just has to stop. And when he stops and looks up, boom, he's standing in the garden of a mosque.
It's like he was just pulled inside. He goes right up to the front of the empty prayer hall, and he just talks. It's not some fancy formal prayer. It's just this incredibly honest, raw plea for help. He's basically saying, look, I don't even know your name or how to do this. Just, please, help me out here.
He asked for a sign, any sign at all, and literally moments later, a woman walks up to him and asks a simple question. Do you want to learn about Islam? I mean, come on, you can't get a more direct, unbelievable answer than that.
And this is where it all comes full circle. Remember why you left the church as a kid? Because they shut his questions down. But here, in this mosque, it was the complete opposite.
Every single question he had wasn't just allowed, it was welcomed and answered logically. The contrast was just huge. So the woman starts explaining the absolute core beliefs of Islam, that there's only one God, a belief in angels and prophets and the divine books, belief in destiny and in the hereafter, heaven and hell.
And as he's listening, he has this massive realization. Wait a minute, I already believe all of this. It just clicked. So right then and there, it all made perfect sense. He took the Shahada, the Declaration of Faith, and he officially became a Muslim, taking the name Yusuf.
But, becoming Muslim wasn't the finish line. Not at all. It was actually the start of a totally new way of looking at the entire world, built on trust and a completely different idea of how things work.
So one of the first things he learns about is this concept called zakat. It's a really central pillar of Islam, basically an obligatory charity where if you're able, you give 2.5% of your savings to people who need it.
And man, his new faith gets tested right away. He's got almost no money left. But instead of panicking, he remembers this principle of trusting God. So what does he do? He spends his very last bit of cash feeding these stray mother cats and their kittens. He just puts his trust out there. And the very next day, a friend comes up to him and, through the community's Zakat fund, gives him a significant amount of money to help him study. For Yusuf, that connection was crystal clear, an act of charity and an immediate, unexpected provision. Yusuf's entire story, it really kicks off because a crisis forced him to look at his world differently. A physical breaking point led to a spiritual breakthrough. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What narratives in our own lives, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we believe, might be worth taking a second look.